Today, the major Wall Street banks are larger than ever. Their profits are soaring.
And we have got to this moment with this momentum because of the work that each of you have put into fighting for the best.
Of course not. Of course not. All of it went to folks at the top and corporations that pay no taxes. The number of corporations.
To Roundtable Decision. I am your host, Wyatt Birkenoff, and for today's video we're going to talk about the Democratic debates night 2 and who were the winners and losers, as well as my opinions and thoughts over the debate as a whole. The real big theme between all these articles I'm referencing is that the winner was Kamala Harris, and they reference the same sort of points on why she was the winner. The biggest reason was when she pushed the 76-year-old Biden, as I'll read from here. Harris pushed the 76-year-old Biden to explain his record on federal busing, which he opposed while a young senator from Delaware, and his association with segregationists, which he has defended as necessary for compromise. I do not, and this is her quote, "I do not believe you are a racist, and I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding a common ground. But I also believe," she continued, "it was harmful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing." Although that decades of old legislative record is hardly new, Harris made it personal. As she stated, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to inaugurate her public schools, and she was also bused to school every day. Harris said, "That little girl was me." And then Biden's response to that, as you could see in any video clips on YouTube, was he was very almost frightened by the exchange. And he tried to defend himself, and some people thought how he defended himself was wrong. And that's not ultimately the concern of this article or any of the other articles. In particular, I didn't think that Biden's response was that bad to it, as Biden is basically trying to prove that you have to work with the people from the other sides and people you don't agree with in order to pass bills that work for both sides. And any compromise has both sides angry, because if one side feels like they have won the compromise, then it's not so much a compromise, but rather a win from that political party. So I think that was his main points of why he worked with these segregationists. And I don't think he was racist or wanted to be racist when he said those claims. But of course, the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris are going to take advantage of it because it sounds like he is racist through those claims of what he said. Another winner, they said, was Mayor Pete, who was a mayor of South Bend, Indiana, a population of 102,000. Yeah. And Mayor Pete shared his stage with the senators, a former governor, blah, 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 blah. But the main point was when he talked about his community, what got targeted by gun violence from an officer who shot a black man. I'll read here. "My community is in anguish right now," the mayor continued, "because of an officer involved shooting a black man, Eric Logan, killed by a white officer, and I'm not allowed to take sides until the investigation comes back. The officer said he was attacked with a knife, but he didn't have his body camera on. It's a mess, and we are hurting. I am determined to bring about a day when a white person driving a vehicle and a black person driving a vehicle, when they see a police officer approaching, feel the exact same thing," he said. "Not a feeling of fear, but of safety." So I was watching the Generational Gap with Stephen ignoring this with the Generational Gap because he was the host, Stephen. And when he did say that, it was kind of funny because they all talked about that everyone has the same feeling when an officer approaches, and that is of fear. Even if you haven't done anything wrong, you still are scared because officers have a sign of authority. And this is big because I don't think, and Steven talked about that on his regular show today, what you can find on YouTube on his channel. But essentially, I don't think, and we both agree, but we both don't think that race is really that big of an issue. Now, it is an issue, but it's not number 5 or number 4 or number 3, let alone the second or the first issue that many Americans have. The big issues that Americans have are immigration, national security, abortion, gun rights. Those are the big issues that Americans face. And I don't think that race or racial imbalance is what most Americans are focused on, because I think the majority of Americans don't care what skin color you are. It doesn't even come across their mind. And obviously there are people who are racist. I'm not saying that there aren't. But it just seems very odd that that would be the focus of that particular point that he was making. And although that sounded great what he said, and that it was his fault essentially, he said that it was his fault, but it was his fault because he doesn't have as many black officers. And you can also find that clip on YouTube. And I just think that that's a wrong way of saying that it's your fault. I don't think it's because you didn't have as many black officers. I find it hard to believe that if you had the same amount of black officers as white officers in your police department, that events like this wouldn't happen. It also said that winners are undocumented immigrants. And this claim is rather weird because many of the debates from either last night or today are saying that immigrants win because, okay, so in this debate they asked all the candidates if they would support giving health care to immigrants for free, rather, or give health care in the first place, and they all rose their hand. And although this sounds great, that all immigrants and all people who live in America should have health care, I think that a lot of people would think that that should be true, or we should try to at least make it true. This claim is when you look at the facts, is false in all degrees, because this simply cannot happen. We're already inundated with immigrants, and if we try to give health care to all of them, or simply the healthcare industry wouldn't be able to keep up by any means, because we already can't keep up now. So although this sounds great in words, it doesn't sound great in practice. And they also said that a loser was Joe Biden because of the Kamala Harris exchange and other exchanges within the debate, and he rather came across as a pushover to many people. Biden did not commit any I'm going to start reading here because this is their claims. Biden did not commit any catastrophic mistakes, but he did die a death by 1,000 cuts as he stumbled his way from answers to quite often no answer. He got dangled by ankle biter Eric Swalwell over the issue of age. When Swalwell reminded voters when he was 6 years old that when he was 6 years old, when he first heard Senator Biden talk of passing the torch to a new generation of leaders. More importantly, Biden seemed caught off guard by Kamala Harris, emotionally charged attack for him for praising the bipartisanship of bygone era with a couple of noted segregationists and his role for federal busing policies. Biden's response to both seemed inadequate to the moment, especially when Harris interrupted him to continue pressing the attack. So they just think that he was rather weak in that claim. And other articles will be seen also say that he was rather weak in that claim and other reasons. They also said that Bernie Sanders was a loser. And although Bernie Sanders is a rather radical of that debate, and many Democrats don't even like Sanders in the first place, at least more moderate thinking Democrats, he does seem like the most truthful of the candidates on the stage. Right? I don't think any of his claims would work, especially free college, universal health care, and any other claims he really says for that matter would work, as a socialist government tends to not work. But by saying that he was a loser because of that doesn't really necessarily make sense in my opinion, because I do think that the majority of Americans see Sanders as being honest. Now to the next article. It talks also about the winner and losers. So it also says that Kamala Harris is a winner, and Mayor Pete is the winner, and Michael Bennet is the winner. But the biggest one I wanted to talk about were the losers of Joe Biden, because these articles are almost saying the exact same thing. And I'll read what CNN has to say. Well, that went poorly from the get-go. Biden seemed too rigorously attacked to his stump speech and his talking points. He struggled to fit in his points into the 60-second time limit. Well, real quick on that, nobody fit their points within the 60-second time limit. Now, I'm in no way a pro-Biden person or wanting to defend Biden in this video, because I don't think that he is the greatest candidate by any means on the stage, or of the first night for that matter, even though he was in the second. Either way, I don't really support Biden in what he says, but none of these candidates fit in a 60-second time limit, so that claim is rather false. He got defensive as we predicted. When Harris pushed him on his comments about segregationists, Senator James Eastland, and his opposition to school busing, and quite clearly lost the back and forth badly. When Biden was attacked what his first act of president would be, he said it would be to defeat Donald Trump. The only extended applause lines Biden received were when he mentioned Barack Obama, but Obama isn't on the ballot and isn't endorsing Biden. It was a very shaky start for Biden. And so another one of the articles talks about how Joe Biden attacked Obama's immigration standards when they deported a lot of people, and he supported it. He supported the deportation of those people. And so a lot of Democrats, or at least a lot of people, theorized that he lost because he claimed that he favored this deportation. I don't see this as necessarily being true, because Biden is running as a moderate Democrat, or he's trying to run as a moderate Democrat due to his perception of how he's running. So I think this is rather smart from Biden, even though many of the liberal type of sources might think that this is rather dumb. And then I was going to skip over Bernie Sanders because they basically say the same thing, but I can read some of the points. Sanders came out as just plain loud. Rather than committed, he came across as repetitive. I probably didn't say that right. Anyway, and even worse, there were lack of periods of the debate where Sanders seemed to just plain disappear. Excuse me. I don't think that this is true either. Even though I'm not trying to back and forth all these articles, I'm just trying to be honest with you when I was watching the debate. I don't think that Sanders was ever lost during the debate because he seemed the most vocal and, as I said before, the most honest on the stage. Even though I don't necessarily agree with his policies, he did come across as the most honest. And then the author, who I never heard of before, and I'll read what their claim is. Watching the author and spiritual advisor on the debate stage remind me of my own experience playing high school basketball, hopefully out of her lead. It's not that Williams isn't a politician, it's that she had zero idea how to navigate a crowded debate stage and make her points. It was also problematic that she didn't seem to have any, points. So I didn't even hear of this person, and when I saw her the first time, I had to look her up, and obviously she's an author, as it says here, but I don't think she was really ready for the debate stage, and I don't think she's going to last much longer, so we're not going to spend too much time. And as they talk about I'll go to Eric Swalwell and then come back to Andrew Yang. Eric Swalwell, you know that the guy in high school who has a catchphrase, and the first time you hear it, you're like, that's not bad. But by the time it gets to the 30th time before lunch, you have to fight down the urge to vomit in your mouth. That's Eric Swalwell, passed the torch. So they're basically saying that he was a one-liner candidate, and he tried to get these phrases to stick. And these phrases, if they sticked, would break out moments for him to be victorious. Because a lot of times in debates, you only remember lines or moments for the debate, and he tried to become that moment. And I don't think that Eric Swalwell did that bad, but nothing really stuck with what Eric Swalwell was saying. Now to Andrew Yang. Yang's online army insisted that his first debate would be his breakout moment, a chance to push his message of the dangers of automation to the general public. The only thing that evoked automation was Yang. In the few moments when he spoke, he sounded like a robot. So I'll quickly go to a post I saw by Tim Pool, and I would highly, I can't say it enough, highly recommend you to follow Tim Pool and subscribe to him on YouTube, and if you have minds, to subscribe to his Subverse News Network, because he's a very reputable man, and I really like his videos and his content he produces, because he comes across as very honest. But he sent out this YouTube channel of Andrew Yang, and that he was caught with his microphone off, or at least it looked like he was caught with his microphone off. So I'll read a tweet earlier, and this was my raw reaction when I saw the video and saw Tim Pool's tweet. Now we know why we didn't hear him very much from him. They cut off his microphone. He even said afterwards that he felt his mic was cut off. Wow, the DNC and/or NBC News is really corrupt. Wow, mass media, what a shame. Makes you wonder if these political debates really matter. And I'll show you this video here what we were referencing.
We expose him for the fraud that he is.
Senator Gillibrand, 30 seconds. I disagree with both their perspectives. Senator Gillibrand, 30 seconds. I disagree with both their perspectives.
So you could see here, and I'll pause the video right here. I just missed it. There we go. So you could see him throughout this little clip, and I'll run it again here, that you could see him trying to talk right here as he's saying words right there. You see him saying words, yet nothing is coming out of the microphone. And it's not just that these microphones, you have to be up close like I am to this mic to really hear a clear volume. These mics are meant to be seen from a distance where you have to talk, but when you talk, the volume still comes across as regular. And this isn't what Andrew Yang's microphone was doing. As you could see that he was talking, yet no volume was coming out. So this makes you completely wonder the fact that why we didn't hear Andrew Yang's voice, as many people thought it was rather odd that his voice didn't get seen, as a lot of people were super hopeful for Andrew Yang and thought he was one of the more moderate, interesting businessman type of candidates to watch, as Donald Trump was a businessman as well. So having that sort of perspective is obviously what won the last election cycle, or presidential election cycle. So it just seemed rather shocking that his microphone was cut off. And if this was truly the case, that his mic was cut off as we see, it makes you really wonder how important these debates are, or how fair these debates are. Because it seems rather odd that these mics can just be cut off like that, and because everyone should have a chance to speak and everyone's voice should be heard. That is what debates are supposed to be for. So obviously if someone has a microphone cut off, then that is hindering on the actual debate standard, and that makes me rather pissed that that happened. And it's a shame that it happened. And if it's truly planned that his mic was cut off, it is really a shame. If it was by a pure accident, it is also very odd. It seems rather too circumstantial to be an accident. So that brings us to another analyzed piece of who was the winner. As you could see, Kamala Harris. And I don't particularly like Kamala Harris, as Steven said earlier in his show, and I highly encourage you to watch his show. But he was saying that he thinks that Kamala Harris is rather a liar and almost a not creepy, but just comes across as being untruthful. And I also agree with that claim. I think that something about her just makes you not believe what she's saying, or it doesn't come across as truthful. And obviously this is a bias I have towards Kamala Harris, and I think that many other people share my opinion or share my bias with it. But I didn't think she really was the winner. Although she handled herself extremely well with her debate, I don't think that she was a winner. And she also said the claim about the food claim, which I'll see if I see it here, because I thought this article had that claim. I don't see it here, but essentially she was talking about how they need to stop having a food fight and need to actually tell America what they want to hear and what their plans are. And that's not her exact quote, but that was essentially what she was saying when a bunch of senators were yelling at each other. And although this claim got her a lot of victory points, I don't think that this was really that great of a statement. I think it seemed rather forceful and almost planned event. And if you believe that Andrew Yang's microphone was cut off, this makes the opinion that she did do this even more truthful, in my opinion. Although it's more conspiratorial, I do think that that is probably what happened. So going with that, it was more of a claim here. we'll see who had the most speaking time, like I did in the first video. So the most speaking time went to Kamala Harris with a total of 12 minutes, I believe it was. Harris spoke for nearly 12 minutes, cited her position as a former federal prosecutor and a black African American to highlight herself as an authority on radical justice. Social justice. She requested more time to discuss social inequality and drilled fellow top biller Biden on his past sentence. So again, we keep hearing. So that was the major claim from all these news networks, that was why Kamala Harris won and Biden lost, was because of that one response. And as I said earlier in this statement, is I don't think that Biden really lost, and I don't think that Kamala Harris really won on this statement. She gained a lot of points for what she did and a lot of believed truthfulness to what she said. But they're politicians for a reason, is all I have to say for that point. And the second debate was much more crosstalk in the actual debate. And there's several other people I haven't talked about in this video, what I might talk about in a shorter recap of both debates, with each talking about each person briefly, which I plan to do. But there was a couple of other responses from people I thought really earned themselves as a top-tier candidate rather than a Kamala Harris, what the people claimed. And overall, in the second debate, I did think that Bernie was the winner of the debate, followed closely behind a few other candidates. And the fact that Andrew Yang's microphone was cut off, what I believe, makes me really angry at the overall debate system and the overall political debate system, as it's become a show. And it's rather disappointing that it's become entertainment and not an actual debate. Thank you for watching.